Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After Dark show for May 24th, 2023. We're planning to do a 6:30 p.m. show tonight, but I got caught in some traffic trying to pick up my son from my mom's house. It's a different life now. So we would have started at like 7:15 by the time I got home. So I figured that would be too late. So I thought, why not just do an After Dark show? And here we go. Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News joining us for the second time in the After Dark show. Jacob, how are you outside of watching your Celtics win tonight?
I'm doing very good. I'm excited the Celtics did not get swept. I did not expect them to win tonight, but they finally showed up. So, that gives you that faint glimmer of hope that, hey, if they can win at home, all of a sudden it's a series again. Do I think they're going to pull it off? No, but, we'll see what happens. So I'm feeling pretty good. How are you doing?
Well, outside of picking the Heat to win this game, not bad. We had some nice Rainmaker deals available today, so that was pretty cool. So excited about the tournament this weekend. Hopefully our lineups do well, and yeah, looking forward to that. Outside of that pick, I'm doing okay, I guess. We had a fun night. My son has learned how to turn on the water in the bathtub. And so when I'm taking a shower, he's like running around the bathtub and he's turning on the water. And so I make sure to turn on the cold water because all he knows how to do is turn on the hot water, and he like burns himself. I'm like, no, don't do it. And he like burns himself and he runs away scared. And so he was also slipping on the floor. So I put down some towels so he wouldn't slip. And so what he did was he grabbed towels and threw them into the bathtub. So none of my plans worked because he managed to turn off the cold water and he still burned himself. So that's, like I said, different life now. But yeah, so we're here to talk MVP odds for the 2023 NFL season. Excited to do this because I feel like there might be some good opportunities here. So I'm going to share the screen here. And this is FanDuel. I don't know what sportsbook you're using. Are you like, what are you, do you have anything open right now at all?
I don't on this computer, but I can
Okay.
open to FanDuel. That's fine. I have FanDuel and DraftKings accounts now that they're
Okay.
legal in Mass, so those are my two go-tos.
Okay, yeah, I mean we can stick with FanDuel here. It's mostly the same. I mean, obviously you want to shop around, but yeah, like you'll be able to find some slight advantages, but for the most part, I think they're the same. So yeah, before we get into this, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would really help us out a lot if you want to support the show. So the three favorites are Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes, all 7-1. Obviously not great odds or anything, but I think if you take a longer shot, I think it's smarter to hedge with one of the favorites, like kind of like we talked about with the Super Bowl odds. So if you're going to hedge, or if you really like one of these, I mean, let me know. Like, what are you looking to bet here with the favorites?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I would just do this mostly as a hedge. I think the one I would go for, though, is Joe Burrow. And my reasoning for this is simple. Patrick Mahomes won MVP last year, and, he could still win it again this year, but he already has two to his name. And we know voters tend to like not to, pick guys to win back to back MVPs if they can help it. We see this in the NBA a lot. Often we know who the best players are, and we know that the best player has a great season every year, but you just can't pick the same guy every year. It gets boring. We saw it this year. Nikola Jokic probably should have been MVP for the third straight year, but they gave it to Embiid because it was really close and Embiid hadn't won it before. So, it's a sensible argument. You want to spread the wealth a little bit, and I think that could happen. So Mahomes would not be the one I would bet, though he's not a bad bet by any means. And I prefer Burrow to Allen in this crowd because Allen just throws too many interceptions. That was the reason I wasn't really in on him as a big time MVP candidate to start last year. I was just worried. He takes a lot of chances, and so that leads to more interceptions. I know Burrow, he throws the ball a lot too, but he's far more accurate. He has a high completion percentage. I actually think among qualified quarterbacks, he has the highest completion percentage in NFL history. That had previously belonged to Drew Brees. Now it's Joe Burrow. So I think you're going to get less mistakes with Joe Burrow. He hasn't won the award yet, but he should have a great season. He should have a fantastic passing attack too, because he's got T. Higgins, he's got Jamar Chase, he's got Tyler Boyd, and I think that he's going to have a really good chance to do it. So if I'm hedging with any one of these guys, it would be Burrow at this point.
Yeah, I like Burrow out of these three as well. You look at what Cincinnati did with the offensive line this offseason. They got Orlando Brown to really solidify the blocking unit, which was It's kind of been the problem the past couple of years. They thought they fixed it last year because they added Alice Kappa, Ted Karras, and Lyle Collins to the offensive line. Collins was never healthy, so they wanted to get another offensive lineman, and they did. And Orlando Brown was great for the Chiefs last year. So you have to think that Burrow with added protection is going to be better. And then I think you're right about there might be voter fatigue, like you said, with Mahomes, not only because he won MVP, but he also won Super Bowl MVP. So I think some of the voters might want to give it to Joe Burrow instead of Mahomes. And I agree with your point about Josh Allen. With throwing interceptions, especially in the red zone. Although having Dalton Kincaid should be able to help that. Um, by the way, with the NBA too, you know, I have been a Sixers fan like all my life, and I couldn't agree with you more. Like Joel Embiid did not deserve MVP. I thought he wasn't. I thought he shouldn't have been in the top two. Actually, I thought it should have been in some order Nikola Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo because Chris Middleton was either injured or he was either out or limited for most of the season, and the Bucks still got the number one seed. So I thought it should have been one of those two, not even Embiid. And I was pretty confused. I don't know why they're trying to kick me out here. I was kind of confused as to why Embiid was the MVP frontrunner. Like I thought it should have been Jokic or Giannis.
Yeah, I think because Giannis had also won multiple MVPs, I think it was just double voter fatigue. So Embiid benefited from that. And he did have a great season. There's no denying that, obviously, statistically. And he put up some monster performances. So I think people just looked and were like, man, this guy's dominant. He's really, really great. So he also had one of his biggest games near the end of the year. So I think that kind of propelled him over the top in the 3-horse race.
It's hard to believe that I heard this today. I guess I knew it, but I never realized it. Embiid has never been out of the second round of the playoffs. Kind of hard to believe, right? Just
Yeah.
as dominant as he's been in the regular season. You look at all of his playoff performances, just pretty average, like across the board. Like even that Raptors series when the Sixers had Jimmy Butler. If you look at Embiid's stats, like they're just like pretty mediocre. He's just so good in the regular season, pretty bland in the playoffs. Kind of, it reminds me of like Peyton Manning, who used to dominate in the regular season and then not so much in the playoffs. But I mean, Manning ended up winning too, so we'll see. I mean, that's still pretty good. All right, next group we have. Let's just do the next line. We have Justin Herbert 9-1, Jalen Hurts 12-1, Lamar Jackson 15-1. For me, Jalen Hurts was the heartbreaker last year because what did we have, Matt? Like 40-1 or something. And it looked like for a while he was going to win the MVP, and then he missed 2 games, and suddenly because he missed 2 games, Mahomes ended up winning MVP. It's just so absurd. So do you have any interest in these three?
Yeah, I think I would consider Jalen Hurts at 12-1 again because I think, look, he's in the NFC. The NFC isn't very good. The Eagles, we thought they were going to have a potential for regression, but they've kept more of their talent than I thought they were going to. And with how weak that conference is, they could once again win 13 to 15 games. If that happens and Hurts puts up good numbers and continues to avoid turnovers like he did, I think he'll have a good chance to do that. I don't really have any interest in Lamar Jackson because I backed that horse last year at long odds and was like, if he stays healthy, he'll be really good. And he didn't stay healthy. Maybe the new contract will allow him to play through things more than he would have previously, but I'm still not willing to back that at 15-1. Herbert's interesting to me a little bit, but I think at under 10-1 odds, I just don't love it. I think there are better values on the board. And I just look at him. I know he has a strong supporting cast, like 4 really good receivers, one of the top receiving backs in the NFL, and Austin Eckler. But I just look at that Chargers team, and I'm just scared they're not going to win enough games. Like Herbert could have an amazing season, and they could end up going 9-8 because Brandon Staley has some coaching inefficiencies at times on offense, and they have a new offensive coordinator. So how is he going to fit with Kellen Moore? Might be great, might not be great. So I would not bet Herbert at this point, even though I like his potential this year.
Yeah, I feel the same way. To me, these three are pretty easy. So I think you can negate Herbert and Jackson because they just suffered too many injuries. Herbert with his supporting cast and Jackson with himself, like he hasn't been able to finish the past 2 seasons. Now maybe you're right. Maybe that new contract lets him play through the injuries more so. But to me, for the Ravens, it's all about Ronnie Stanley staying healthy. They lost their left guard, Ben Powers, so they need Ronnie Stanley to stay healthy, and he hasn't been able to do it. I think he's missed is like close to 30 games in the past 3 years. It's like pretty insane. Um, so Jalen Hurts is like the last guy standing in this on this line, and it sucks because we got him at 40-1 last year, and now he's 12-1, so it's not nearly as much value. But the Eagles are the best team in the NFC, and if the voters have like voting fatigue with Mahomes, I think Jalen Hurts is definitely someone who can win it. He's a great supporting cast and everything, great offensive line. A new coordinator might hurt a little bit, but I think that, Jalen Hurts being able to improvise with his legs and everything, I think that should make him the favorite in the NFC. And that's the case here. So to me, like, I think Hurts is a pretty good hedging opportunity if you're going to take someone with a long shot.
Yeah, I think you're dead right about that. And the thing about his new coordinator is at least he's being promoted from within, and I think it's Brian Johnson. Uh, he was drawing rave reviews for his work with Jalen Hurts last year, so maybe they have a good relationship. We won't know until they're on the field whether it'll work or not, but I have higher hopes for that than Herbert with Kellen Moore, where you're looking at it and you're saying, "Oh, this guy's coming in from outside," and Kellen Moore has a great reputation, but who's to say it's going to work?
Yeah, yeah. We won't know until the games actually start. We can just speculate, but it does sound promising. All right, 16-1 picks. You have Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa. Anything pique your interest here?
Yeah, I think I like Lawrence the best of these. We saw him, like, if you consider last year his sort of rookie season. I know that's not entirely logical, but no quarterback could have succeeded under Urban Meyer with all of the absolute madness and chaos that was happening under his watch. So that's why he was so bad as a rookie. He made immense strides under Doug Peterson, looked fantastic at the end of the year, helped lead that comeback against the Chargers in the playoffs, and I know that he sometimes can throw interceptions a lot because he looks a lot downfield, but I think he's going to get better this year because he's going to have Calvin Ridley at his disposal. That's just upgrading in the receiving core in general. Zay Jones, he showed good chemistry with. He'll be better off as a number two tertiary type guy. So I think with all the weapons he has around him and with this type of experience, Lawrence could really pop off this year. And the Jaguars are in a pretty easy division. They have an easier schedule as a result of that. So, if they win 11 games, 12 games, and Trevor Lawrence has a huge season and really cuts down on his interceptions, maybe gets up near the league lead in touchdowns, I think that a lot of voters are going to look at him and say, like, hey, wow, this guy's really panning out as that former number one pick that we thought was going to be great. So I think Lawrence is a good, like, mid-tier value pick at this point. I would say the same thing a little bit about Tua if I wasn't so worried about the injuries. Obviously, he has a great supporting cast, but I can't touch the injuries there. And Aaron Rodgers, I think there's a little voter fatigue there, and I think he would just have to do so well with the Jets. He'd have to bring them to, like, really another level, and I'm just a little worried that that's not going to quite pan out. And as for Dak Prescott, I just don't think he can put up MVP type numbers. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I wonder about the voting fatigue factor with Aaron Rodgers because he's with a new team. Like I think that from the from what I've heard, just listening to different podcasts and stuff, it doesn't seem like people think the Jets are going to do that well this season, which kind of surprises me a little bit. Like when the schedule came out, I heard people bashing the schedule makers, saying, "Oh, how can you put the Jets on so many primetime games?" People compared it to the Broncos with Russell Wilson, and I'm thinking, like, well, what about the Bucks and Tom Brady and the Rams with Matthew Stafford? Worked with them. The Jets were 7-10 last year, but they lost 7 games by 1 score. So I think that Aaron Rodgers could definitely give them those wins, or at least most of those games. So I think 16-1 doesn't look that bad, considering that Rodgers has the pedigree of being an MVP winner. He has there's not going to be any transition into the offense because he's played under Nathaniel Hackett before. Not that Hackett had a great run last year with the Broncos, but still, I mean, there is some chemistry there with Rodgers. So I don't mind this Rodgers 16-1. I do think Lawrence 16-1 looks okay too. I just wanted better numbers with him because if you look at, like, compare it to Jalen Hurts at 12-1, like, I think Hurts is way more likely to win than Lawrence. especially given the potential offensive line issues the Jaguars might have. Like they lost Jawan Taylor and Cam Robinson might be suspended. I know they drafted Anton Harrison, but he's a rookie. Like who knows what they're going to get out of him. If Harrison doesn't play well and Cam Robinson is suspended, like they're going to have nothing at tackle, which is going to be an issue outside of the division. So I still think they're going to win the division, but still, I think I needed like 25-1 with Lawrence. Like if you compare that to 12-1 with Hurts, I think I also needed like 25-1 with Tua. With Rodgers, like I think I'd bet this at like 20-1. So out of these four, I think Rodgers is my favorite, but then Lawrence is number two, and then Tua is number three. Injuries being the thing there, like you said.
I think the thing that's scaring me off of Rodgers is the personal thing. And I've won one of his MVP years. I bet him to win MVP at like 16-1, or it might have been better than 16-1 odds. So I'm seeing it now, and I'm like, no, but I got him at 18-1
Yeah,
that
right.
one time, and that was a better spot than this. So I totally get the case for him, because if the Jets pan out, if they go 12-5, and he really doesn't skip a beat, and shows that last year was more of a fluke than a real regression, I think it could pan out. But I think the odds are just a little too short for me. I agree, 20-1 on him. I'd be excited about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. Like, I would compare it to like stocks as well. Like, during the GameStop run, I was buying GameStop at like $4 or $5, and then it went to 10. It was at like 10 for a couple months, and I had like I had some paychecks come in, and like I was okay. I was thinking like, oh, what stock should I buy? And I was looking at GameStop. I'm like, well, 10. I bought it at 5, and then obviously it went to like 400. So like obviously it was a mistake not to buy more at 10. So it's like I feel the same way with Hurts too. Like we got him at 40-1 last year. Now he's 12-1, and that price seems so bad. But if you think about it, like he should probably be near the top. It's like maybe not 7-1, but I think he should be at least 9-1. If Herbert's 9-1, I think he should be 9-1. So that's like kind of the same phenomenon you're thinking with Rodgers.
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
Yeah. All right. 20s to 30s. We have Justin Fields 20-1, Deshaun Watson 25-1, Jared Goff 25-1, and Geno Smith 30-1. Do you like anything here?
I'm not super wild about this tier. I kind of like Justin Fields in terms of, because he's going to be a true dual threat quarterback. He has a real number one receiver in DJ Moore coming this year. That's going to have a major impact on that receiving core, because it's going to allow Darnell Mooney to settle into a number two receiver role as a real deep threat. Chase Claypool can work more in the slot as the number three receiver and alternate with more inside and outside, so they could play matchup game there. Cole Kmet really showed a lot of growth at the end of last year. So between that and the offensive line upgrades they made, signing Nate Davis and drafting Darnell Wright, I think that's really going to help Fields. It's going to make him easier for him to throw, and he could run for the most yards by a quarterback in NFL history if all goes well and if he stays healthy. The health concern is always the big one with mobile quarterbacks. 20-1, I might take a chance on Fields. My only other question is, are the Bears really going to be good enough for him to win MVP? They probably have to make the playoffs and get to double-digit wins. Not sure they're quite ready to do that, even though I think that they could potentially have a winning record. So I like that one, but I don't love it, so I probably won't bet it. And Jared Goff at 25-1, that seems like a decent one if he can avoid interceptions. He could end up having a really efficient year in that Lions offense. He's surrounded by so many weapons, has one of the best offensive lines in football. And you and I both think the Lions will be really good this year. They could end up being one of the top teams in the NFC. If that happens, someone on that team is going to get MVP attention. It most likely will be Goff, unless Jahmyr Gibbs or Amon-Ra St. Brown has an enormous year. But I'm still probably not super in on Goff at 25-1, just because he could just end up looking average and being a really good game manager that manages the team well, but never really racks up as many touchdowns as we think. They could end up being more ground dominant if Jahmyr Gibbs pans out. So probably wouldn't bet him, but those are two I would consider in this range.
You talk about a number that's a lot worse than it was last year. I had Jared Goff at 300-1 last year. I
Yep.
bet I bet him like $20 on it. I'm like, okay, I probably won't see this $20 again, but like a starting quarterback on a good team at 300-1 is absurd. At 25-1, obviously the Lions have a better team now than they did last year. So, Jared Goff definitely has a legit chance to win it. I would need better odds than 25-1, I think. Same thing with Justin Fields. Like that team is not good. It's not bad either. Like I feel like the Bears are going to teeter on making the playoffs, potentially like 8-9, 9-8, maybe 10-7. So like in the NFC, that might be good enough to get there. But even if they sneak into the playoffs, I think they would need to have a much better record for Justin Fields to win MVP. I mean, look at what Jalen Hurts did last year, and he didn't win, So it would have to be just like an amazing performance, and they'd have to have like a top 3 seed in the conference, and he would have to have like a billion touchdowns. Which like the billion touchdowns part might happen because he's so fast. But the defense is so bad, so I don't know if that's going to happen. I'd like to make a case for Geno Smith at 30-1. He has 3 really good receivers now with Metcalf, Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. The offensive line played well last year. The 2 tackles, they're going to have experience now. And the defense is not very good. I like their secondary, but their pass rush and run defense are pretty poor. So the Seahawks may have to throw a lot in a lot of shootouts. And if the 49ers kind of falter because, they lost Mike McGlinchey and some depth on the defensive line and their quarterbacks aren't healthy, like this, maybe the Seahawks win the NFC South, NFC West. And if Geno Smith has a great passing season, if he like gets close to 5,000 passing yards with this great receiving core, maybe he can get there. I think 30-1, like not, and again, it's like not an amazing number. But I think that in this group, I think that there's a legit chance that Geno Smith might be the favorite out of these 4.
Yeah, I can see it for sure. My only worry there is what if last year was the Gary Barnage special where it's like
Right.
you have the true flash in the pan. It's like, oh, he actually isn't good. But I have more faith in Geno Smith now, just after reading about his work habits and everything. Everything we saw last year feels like less of a mirage. So I definitely see the case for him. I just wasn't in love with the number. And to your point on Justin Fields, too, I think the only way that he could possibly get the MVP if the Bears had a losing record is if he shatters the quarterback rushing record, or if he like somehow gets 2,000 rushing yards. I mean, it's unlikely, but it's not out of the question entirely if he stays healthy the whole year, because he's just so fast and teams just can't contain quarterbacks constantly, or they run the risk of letting him, throw deep on them all game. So I think that would have to be the way they would do it if the Bears don't win it all. And I think that's pretty unlikely, though I would be interested to see what the odds are on Justin Fields leading the NFL in rushing yards.
I don't know if a sportsbook has this, but I'd like to see the odds that he'd break Eric Dickerson's 2105 rushing yards record. That'd be pretty amazing if that happened. I mean, the way he runs is kind of incredible, and like he routinely ran for like 150 plus per game last year, or at least 100 plus. Like he was insane. Like he'd have halves where he'd run for 100 yards. So I don't know. I feel like he'd get injured by before he broke Dickerson's record, but I mean, if he stays healthy, it's definitely possible, like you said.
Teach him to slide. Got to slide, and we'll be good.
Yeah. Well, he has a whole offseason, so hopefully he learns how to do that. 35s and 40s. We have Jordan Love 35-1, Derek Carr 35-1. We have 340-1s. Russell Wilson, Kenny Pickett, and Brock Purdy. Anything interesting here?
This is such a weird group of passers to be in the MVP conversation. I get it. They're going to put all the quarterbacks at relatively short odds, but I feel like if anyone in here would be able to do it, it would probably be Russell Wilson, just because if he has a big bounce back year, he's been in the MVP mix before. He has some pretty good receivers. Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton have trouble staying healthy. But if they do stay healthy and play consistently, then I think Russell Wilson could end up being much better this year than he was last year. And if that's the case, he might at least work his way into the MVP conversation at some point during the season. Am I super confident in that? No. But if I had to pick one guy from this tier and say, this is your MVP pick, you have to make this, I probably would go Russell Wilson. I think Kenny Pickett still, I think he's going to be a guy that in year 3, I'm going to look at and be like, man, this guy's got MVP potential if he continues on the growth pattern he's on. And Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan says they're planning on having him ready for week 1, but I'm just too worried about that elbow. And look, all it takes is one ding of that elbow if he comes back too early too to sideline him for the whole year. So those two scare me enough. Jordan Love, there's way too small of a sample size to back him at odds this really short odds for him. And Derek Carr, I got a kick out of him being ahead of some of the guys on this list. I just don't think the Saints are going to be that good. I think Derek Carr's okay. Like, he's fine, but I just don't think he's going to put up MVP type numbers. He hasn't really challenged for that since 2014. And really, since he broke his leg, he's never gotten to that ceiling type level that we had hoped he might get to.
Yeah, I'd bet Derek Carr crying at the podium before winning MVP. So I don't like that number either. I agree. I think Russell Wilson 40-1 is the best here. It's not great, especially considering what we saw last year. But I mean, if he reverts back to what he was in Seattle, which is I think is possible because Sean Payton said Nathaniel Hackett, a much improved offensive line, and he really gelled with Jerry Jeudy at the end of the year. So I think there's a chance. Plus, Cortland Sutton, another year removed from his torn ACL. Greg Dulcich is going to have experience. He looked good as a rookie last year. Tim Patrick's going to be back from his torn ACL. Garrett Bowles is going to be back from injury. Like, there's a lot going for Denver, I think. 40-1. If this is like 60-1, 70-1, I think I'd have a lot more interest. Feels like it should be higher given how bad Wilson was last year. Like, you could probably find a better number to a different sports book. But yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson is someone I would like to bet on higher odds, just not really 40-1 though. Like Jalen Hurts at 40-1 last year was just so much better than this.
Yeah, if you compare the two, it's like Hurts had way more upside than Wilson at this point, or at least a higher floor. Because Wilson, if he continues to regress, you're like, oh, that bet's dead 5 weeks into the season. You never want that. We had that with Daniel Jones a few years ago. We were like, that was a brutal one because we were like, well, there's not even remotely a chance of this.
Yeah, you can do fun things with your ticket. It's just if you have a live one, not if you bet online. And I had a live one. I remember being at the Win in Vegas and seeing Daniel Jones. I think he was wasn't he like 100-1 or something, or 150-1? I remember looking at that like, oh, that seems like good value. Let me go bet it. And I actually had a live ticket. I should have saved it so I could burn it or something. But yeah, you could do fun things with those at least. All right, 50s and 60s. We have Kirk Cousins 50-1, Trey Lance 50-1, Matthew Stafford 60-1, and Mac Jones 60-1. Do you like anything in this group?
I'm gonna have to say no to Trey Lance just because we don't know that he's even gonna start. Like, he's if Brock Purdy is healthy in week 1, Trey Lance might not start, and he might not start anyway because Sam Darnold might start. We just don't know who's gonna win that quarterback competition. I'd be shocked if it wasn't Lance if Purdy can't play, but don't want that risk at these short odds. Same with Matthew Stafford and Mac Jones. I don't see super high ceiling for Jones in the Patriots offense. He'll be asked to manage the game at best. And at worst, he could be benched if things go poorly. So I don't want anything to do with him. Stafford at 60-1, that's okay. I mean, if he bounces back from that elbow injury, then I think he could have a good year. The Rams are kind of a little bit of a sleeper just because of how bad the NFC is, but I still don't think that they're nearly as talented as they were when they won the Super Bowl. They still have some blocking issues, so I think they'll be better than last year, but not good enough for me to back Stafford. So that brings me to Cousins. Again, I'm not wild about this, but one of my coworkers just said, I think Kirk Cousins is going to be my sleeper MVP pick. And I don't look, we've talked about Kirk Cousins all the time on here about how he's overrated as a player, and I think that's true still. But I think if you look at him and just say, look, at 50-1, you're getting a quarterback with good offensive weapons who has Justin Jefferson at his disposal. They have the USC kid whose name I'm forgetting. I think it's Jordan Addison. Yeah, there we go. Okay. It's getting late in my head, so I'm trying to keep everything straight there. But they have those guys. They have KJ Osborne. They have TJ Hawkinson. And either Dalvin Cook or Alexander Madison, hopefully the latter, at running back at this point. So I think that he can really do a lot with those guys, and they'll make him look better than he really is. And I think that because they're going to have to throw a lot, if that defense doesn't make major strides under Brian Flores, I think he'll get a lot more attention for his stats. And he's been better about cutting down on turnovers in recent years. He's been a little more consistent. So I'd be okay backing him at 50 to 1. I wouldn't love it. Like, I wouldn't be like, I'm going to put everything on Kirk Cousins. I'm all in on him. You can't go all in on Kirk Cousins, but you can look at him at 51 and say, hey, this isn't too bad. The Vikings could be a playoff team. They could win their division. And, if they do, he's going to draw attention. So I would at least consider him.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fine bet. I think it's my favorite in this group. Stafford, I just don't trust to stay healthy. Plus, the offensive line stinks. Mac Jones, for the reasons you said, he's just a game manager, and Trey Lance may not even play. So Kirk Cousins, by default, is the best player in this group, and he has a great supporting cast around him. The offensive line is really good, great receiving core, as you said. I like the coaching staff. So Cousins is someone who could throw for 5,000 yards for sure. And if the Vikings are better than people think they are, and it seems like people are down on them, so like if they end up having the same record as they did last year, and kind of like maybe the Eagles fall off a little bit, and because of potential injuries, and the Lions aren't as good as we think they will be, and the Niners aren't as good as people think they will be, like suddenly the Vikings could potentially end up with the number one seed. I don't think that's like out of the question, and if so, Cousins will be live to an MVP. So I'd want like slightly better numbers than this. I'd like want 75 to 1 or something. But I think Cousins is definitely live to win it. So I don't think it's a bad bet to get him at 50 to 1.
Yeah, I think in my ideal world, 60 to 1 would be the price on him, and I'd
Mhm.
be like ready to bet that. So I think 50 to 1's not bad. If you shop around, you should be able to find better numbers on him. And I would think that's a pretty decent bet.
Yeah, definitely recommend shopping around. It's super important. There's so many sports books options out there, so like there's no excuse not to do it. All right, 75 and 100. I really like one player in this group. Daniel Jones 75 to 1, and then we have five. No, we have six at 100 to 1. Ryan Tannehill, Kyler Murray, Justin Jefferson, Slinging Sammy Howell, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Sam Darnold. So what sticks out here, if anything?
All right, process of elimination. I know Kyler Murray, Ryan Tannehill, Jimmy G, and Sam Darnold are not going to be the ones that you're backing.
Oh, what? No Sam Darnold? Come on.
Oh yeah, no, I know. He was right on the cusp there. So it's either Daniel Jones, Justin Jefferson, or Sam Howell. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and say that I like two of those, and I'm gonna eliminate Sam Howell from my ballot and just say, look, I think he has a high ceiling, but there's just such little sample size, and Washington would have to play really, really well. And I know he has a ton of good weapons around him, and at 100 to 1, that could be a nice bet, but I'm not quite ready to go there with him, because what if that game with the Cowboys was just a flash in the pan? I had a higher grade than the fifth round on him, but I'm just a little worried about that. You can tell me why I'm wrong if that's your guy, but Daniel Jones at 75 to 1, he's got much better receivers around him. And he was so good in Dable's first year as a coach. Just we saw the turnovers come way down. We saw him use his legs really well. And he was really successful as a passer with guys like Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins as his top receivers. Now he's going to have Jalen Hyatt and Paris Campbell at his disposal, in addition to Hodgins, who's a good starter on the outside. So I think they've had some upgrades there. And Darren Waller at tight end is going to make a huge difference for them. So I think with that better supporting cast at 75 to 1, it seems like Daniel Jones is a little mispriced to me, because I think he could take a step forward this year. And then Justin Jefferson at 100 to 1. Look, we both think that the Vikings may have a shot at winning their division. We both like the Lions better, but I think the Vikings are certainly a live playoff team. Jefferson, if he goes over 2,000 receiving yards, I know receivers never won MVP, but Jefferson was getting a ton of buzz last year. And if the Vikings are good again, and people are like, oh, it's not Kirk Cousins making this team great, it's really Justin Jefferson. If he gets over 2,000 yards, it's possible. So I would be okay backing him at 100 to 1. So Jones and Jefferson are my top two of this tier, but I'm interested to hear if one of those two is your guy or if it's Howell.
I love Howell, but it's not him. I really think
Okay.
he's gonna have a good season. It's not slinging Sammy Howell. Justin Jefferson is appealing at 101, definitely, but my guy is Daniel Jones. And I think if you shop around, you might be able to get 100 to 1. This is really interesting to me because Daniel Jones is someone who really struggled early in his career, as we know, because we lost bets on him to win MVP earlier. Because like for a couple of reasons. First, he was never coached well, and second, he had always had bad offensive line play in front of him. that both things have changed. Like now, Brian Dable's there. He did a great job with Daniel Jones last year. He got him to run a lot, and I think that's key too. Like he scored a bunch of rushing touchdowns, so he's definitely live to get a lot of rushing scores once again. And then second, the offensive line has improved a lot. Like Andrew Thomas has become one of the best left tackles in the NFL. They drafted John Michael Schmitz to play center. He's going to be a lot better there. Right tackle, they have Evan Neal, who struggled as a rookie, but he had high upside. And like, what if like he is like Andrew Thomas, who really struggled as a rookie and then improved? Like, what if Evan Neal gets a lot better? Like, suddenly that offensive line is going to be really good, and Jones is going to have lots of protection. He's going to be able to air it out to those improved receivers that you were talking about. Like Jalen Hyatt can go over the top, like kind of like Devontae Smith. Hey, Paris Campbell was he's like a fine like third option. They have Darren Waller. You mentioned him. I think they re-signed Darius Slayton. They still have Isaiah Hodgins. And plus they have Wan'Dale Robinson coming back from injury. So like suddenly their receiving core is looking pretty good. They still have Saquon Barkley. So Jones can lean on him a lot. And I like the Giants this year. I think that they have a chance to be second place in the division. And if the Eagles suffer injuries or if the guys they drafted aren't good, it wouldn't shock me at all if the Giants won the division. I think they're just so well coached and they have a lot of talent. So if the Giants end up winning the division over the Eagles, and if they do, they're live for the number one seed. If all that happens and Jones gets a bunch of touchdowns, both throwing and running, I think he's definitely live for it. So 75 to 1s, I think, is a fine number. But like I said, I think you can shop around and get 100 to 1 somewhere. So out of all like the long shots, I think Jones is the best one.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense to me that he's at 75 to 1, yet we have quarterbacks similar to him, like Kenny Pickett's 40 to 1. Like that doesn't make
Right.
sense to me. Like Kenny Pickett, if he progresses, would I imagine hopefully be a better version of what Daniel Jones was last year. But we don't know how he's gonna go forward yet. Daniel Jones on this sports book is 75 to 1, and Pickett is 40 to 1. So it just doesn't quite compute to me. It seems like a great value. That was the one that I looked at. And I'm like, this seems wrong. So either FanDuel or sportsbooks in general are just saying, hey, we think the Giants were a little fluky because they had an easy schedule last year, which is fair. But I think they're not taking into account the coaching and the improvements that roster has made, because I think they're going to be better this year. So glad we're on the same page there.
Yeah, not on Howell or anything, but yeah, it is odd that like Trey Lance is 50 to 1 and he may not play. Like it just seems like Jones is a complete misprice here. And like I said, you might even get better value elsewhere. So all right, so these are the extreme long shots. I'm just going to read all of them off. They're 151 or better. So you could tell me at the end if you like any of these. So all right, Derrick Henry, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Desmond Ritter, Bailey Zappi, Debo Samuel, Jamar Chase, Anthony Richardson. They're all 150 to 1. Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Zach Wilson, Stephon Diggs, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, Devontae Adams, Aaron Donald, CeeDee Lamb, Nick Bosa, Travis Kelce, Bijan Robinson. They're all 200 to 1. And then 240 to 1 or better, you have Aiden Hutchinson, Carson Wentz, and George Kittle. Wentz, he's not even in the league right now. All right. So anything stand out there?
Yeah, there are two I like. In this range, you're going to want to go with the running backs. They're the ones that carry value. I know that they don't often win MVP, but I don't see the value in betting a rookie quarterback to win MVP or like Desmond Ritter. Like they'd have to be insanely good for that to happen, and it's too rare. You're basically lighting money on fire if you do that. Whereas running backs at least have a chance. Christian McCaffrey at 200 to 1 in that Kyle Shanahan offense with a full season. He could end up putting up massive numbers. I know the blocking in front of him is a little worse, but the quarterbacks in that offense are a little banged up. So, if Brock Purdy's not ready for the start of the year and Sam Darnold is starting, they're going to probably lean on Christian McCaffrey a bit heavier than they would normally. And I know Eli Mitchell will be there to steal some carries, but look, McCaffrey is super efficient. He catches a lot of passes, so he's a dual threat running back. He could have 2,500 scrimmage yards. And if he goes over 2,000 rushing yards, they're always going to be in the mix for it at least. So 200 to 1, I'm willing to take a chance that he stays healthy and that happens. And then the other one I like, this one's getting a little weird, but I like Bijan Robinson at 200 to 1. Yeah, I know he's a rookie, but it's that fit in that offense I just think is perfect. Atlanta ran the ball second most among NFL teams last year, behind only the Bears, who really had a lot of scrambles with Justin Fields at quarterback. But I think that the Falcons are going to keep that formula. They're going to really treat Bijan Robinson as a workhorse. He's going to help Desmond Ridder. And they're just going to basically say, hey, Ridder, you're going to give the ball to Bijan a lot because that's going to open things up for you in the passing game. And I think if Bijan Robinson gets a lot of carries early in his career and he gets up near 2,000 rushing yards as a rookie, or he just challenges the rookie rushing record even, I think that will get him in the MVP mix because I think the Falcons could make the playoffs. Now, is their team guaranteed to win double-digit games? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. But I think if Bijan Robinson helps get the Falcons to the playoffs and gets over 2,000 yards, there's at least a chance for it. So would I like him at longer odds than what I'm getting McCaffrey at? Yeah, that's definitely the case. But I actually think that FanDuel is underpricing McCaffrey because McCaffrey is 80-1 on DraftKings and 200-1 on this sports book. So again, shop around, guys. You'll find better deals. But I like both of those long shots. I just think one of those running backs could pan out.
Yeah, it just goes to show how important it is to shop around. I mean, like if we were reading this off DraftKings initially, I think we would have both dismissed McCaffrey at 80-1, but now 200-1. When you were talking about Brock Purdy before, in my head, I was thinking, well, Purdy's kind of tough because McCaffrey might be deemed like the best player on that team and he might win MVP. And now I'm seeing him at 200-1. I think that's definitely the most appealing extreme long shot that we have. Outside of that, I just don't see anything else. Like Bijan Robinson, like if he were on a better team, I could definitely see that. But Atlanta is like, yeah, they could win the division, but they could win the division at 8-9. Like that's just how bad the NFC South is. Some of these pass rushers are kind of interesting, like TJ Watt, Nick Bosa. Like, what if one of them breaks the sack record? But we've seen players break the sack record and not be MVP before. So, it is pretty tough to bet anything here. One player who's not here, unless I missed him, is Nick Chubb. I think there's a chance he could win the rushing title this year because Kareem Hunt's gone, and the Browns their offensive line's still good. So, and plus the defense has improved, so he's going to have a lot more opportunity to run the ball in the fourth quarter. So if Chubb breaks like Eric Dickerson's record in the 17 game slate, which is I think that's possible. Maybe he's the MVP, especially if the Browns make the playoffs. So like if Chubb were like 300-1, I'd have some interest there, but I don't see him listed. Like maybe he should be there instead of Carson Wentz.
He's 200-1 on DraftKings. Nick Chubb, that is. So
okay.
if you like him, you can get him over there. I like that theory because they don't have that guy to steal carries or receptions from him now. So it very easily could be Chubb. He has that good O-line. So yeah, no, I'm a fan of that trade. I just like taking long shot running backs. I did it with Derrick Henry a few years ago when he had his really, really big year, and it was just fun to watch that till the end. And, they don't often win, but if they put you in a position where you can hedge effectively, that's always a good thing.
Yeah, it's true. But Robert's asking, what were Lamar's odds for the MVP? He's 15-1, as you can see here. He says he also likes Desmond Ridder. He says he's not a bad pick. I don't know. I think I don't really see it with Ridder. And plus he had Bijan there. Like Bijan could be deemed like the best player in that offense. So like I wouldn't go chasing that. If you got like 300-1, like maybe I still wouldn't do it. I'd rather get like a Nick Chubb at 300-1. But yeah, like I said, I think like Daniel Jones is probably my favorite value bet, 75-1. And then I would probably hedge with Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts. Are you doing something similar?
Yeah, I would probably take that approach because if Daniel Jones doesn't pan out, you still probably have two of the top 5 candidates with Burrow and Hurts. But if Jones does pan out and he's in the running for it, you're going to have a really good chance at landing one of those top 3. Because unless Burrow or Hurts gets hurt, then those guys are going to be definitively in the mix. And regarding the Desmond Ridder thing, I agree with you. I think in a different offense, if it was an offense that wasn't more run heavy, you could maybe convince me to take a long flyer on Desmond Ridder because he did avoid turnovers last year. If you said like, oh, he's going to be a lot better this year and show like real growth, then maybe you could do it. But just that offense is so ground dominant. I don't see that changing because Arthur Smith comes from Tennessee where that was really their plan as well. So I do like the idea of year 2 quarterbacks, though. I think they're better bets than rookie quarterbacks. That's but you can also get yourself into trouble. I think that's what we did with Daniel Jones. We were like,
Mhm.
oh, he's going to make huge strides in his second year. And maybe it'd be like Carson Wentz. And then it was more like, oh my God, this is terrible. Um, so you got to pick the situation properly. Desmond Ritter in a different situation, I might like more, but it's just not the right offense for him
Yeah,
to
like
really break out.
yeah, I think Arthur Smith would love Ritter to be like Ryan Tannehill, and Ryan Tannehill is never going to win MVP. It was going to be Derrick Henry, if anyone, from Tennessee. So, I wouldn't go there either. But yeah, I mean, that's I'd say that's about it for this show. Um, so yeah, do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I will tweet out my thoughts about football, basketball, because the Celtics are still hanging on by a thread. I will usually bash them when they play poorly. I get upset and I have to talk to someone about it, and that's usually the void that is Twitter. But I'll also post the occasional golf thought there, and some betting articles. I got an Indianapolis 500 betting article out. So if you know nothing about stock car racing like me, then you can get advice from someone who knows nothing about stock car racing. But actually,
Nice.
one of my picks won last year, so maybe the strategy will work again. But yeah, if you have any NFL questions, feel free to message me on Twitter, and if I see it, I will answer it. And until next week, I'll be there.
Well, you said you know nothing about it, but I know even less. So I would, I'm definitely going to listen to you if I end up betting that. So, yeah, check out waltzerfootball.com, and please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. Tomorrow on Wildcard Wednesday on the show, we're going to have Kenny. We're going to do the best seasons in TV history. So, after we stop talking, Jacob, I'm going to do my list and then talk about it with Kenny. So looking forward to that. But yeah, I will talk to you guys tomorrow night.
All right.